I just want to touch on a few of the food groups, Monique, with your expertise in the area, because there's always a lot of questions about this. In general, nuts are bad, correct? There are a few that are lower, like I think you said macadamia and maybe walnut. Is that right?
Macadamias, walnuts. Yeah, you could have a little bit of maybe even pistachios or pecans, but your best bet's really this baru nut. But that said, you've probably got, you know, say 15 milligrams of oxalate in that handful of macadamia nuts versus, 150 to 200 in that handful of walnuts. So you're 1/10. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are definitely ways to sort of sub and have something in your diet, just using a different food.
How about let's just look at the grains and pseudo grains. You mentioned teff, which again I didn't eat a lot of it, but we were trying new ones at the time. But quinoa for sure, and I think you've mentioned buckwheat being very high too. And I ate a lot of that because as a vegan, you're trying to fill yourself because you're constantly hungry because the greens aren't filling you. So you're looking for some sort of grain product. What are some good alternatives for folks in that grain area?
And I would argue too that one of the reasons why you're so hungry as a vegan or a vegetarian is because there's not enough nutrient in there. So, but that said, if you're relatively healthy and you like grains, then I would go to, rice is probably better for you. It's one of the lower ones. Um, there's a lot of chatter about corn. I'm not sure how great corn is for you, but it's low oxalate. So, if you don't have other gut issues, it might be all right. I've actually started to move towards non-grain flours if I'm going to make baked goods. So sometimes lupin, sometimes coconut flour. So I'm kind of thinking when it comes to grains that I want things as nutrient dense as possible. And a lot of the grains are just really heavy in starch. But one of the ones that I do really like is fonio, Fonio. It's relatively new in the North American market. It can be very hard to find. For a while there, it was really popular around here, and then it just sort of disappeared. It was a bit faddish. But what I like about it is it has a lot stronger taste. My kids really liked it. I don't really eat grains. I tasted a little bit to figure out what they were telling me. But it has almost a nutty flavor. So it's a nice option for somebody who wants a grain which has some flavor of its own, because white rice doesn't have a lot of flavor of its own. If people are not celiac, and they're out somewhere, I would actually recommend them like a white flour bun if they wanted to have a bread product over almost any of the fancy, healthier, whole grain, blah, blah, blahs.
And last two on the diet, then we'll move on to the others that I often get questions about are coffees, decaf and regular, and then teas. I know black tea tends to be very high, but if someone's going to want tea, are there recommendations for tea drinkers that they could use?
If you really want like actual tea as opposed to a herbal kind of thing, I would look at like a decaffeinated green. That seems to be a bit lower than some of the others. And decaffeinated probably in general is a bit lower than your regular conventional black tea. We did test, trying to think of which black tea it was. There was one that wasn't too bad. But like it's really hard unless foods have been tested and you know where they're coming from and what growing conditions can all make a difference. So in general, if I was going to opt for some kind of tea, I would either opt for herbal or I would opt for a decaf regular. And the herbal ones, you still have to dodge a few bullets, but rooibos, which people like, is a good one. Chamomile, peppermint, nettle. I drink all of those. I like horsetail tea. It's higher in minerals, but it's a diuretic, so people have to kind of figure out what they need to be doing with that. But yeah, there's some really good herbal ones. So those would be worth checking out. And the nice thing about something like tea is you can carry a few tea bags with you.